All right, I'm recording this all the way through. So I want to thank you guys. You guys can see my screen, right?
Yes.
And I know
Yes.
that this program is really designed for students, but I'm hoping that Emily and other parents and so on, and there should be some faculty people popping in at some point in time here, are going to get something out of this as well. Especially if they have responsibility for any kind of administration. I'd love them to be able to share this with their students and so on. I'm also going to have this on recording so I can share it with them as well. So that's a positive thing there. I'm going to go to our agenda. Hopefully that's changed. So you can see my agenda now?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. I can't tell. So we're going to talk a little bit about what Rotary is and then going to turn this to our guest, to Jolynn, who's a sophomore from Santa Margarita Catholic High School, and she's really one of the stimulus that created this program. So she's going to introduce Poppy, and Poppy's going to share with us a bit of her life in Iran as a teenager and as a youth, and even today. And then if we have some time, we'll talk a little more about some upcoming events and a little bit more about Rotary, and then we'll close it all out. So I'm going to do this because, like in every single classroom environment, even though this is not in school, I'm going to ask you to turn your videos on, which you guys have them on now, which is perfect. And that's for two reasons, just so you guys know. One is security. I want to make sure we know everybody's on the call. And then also, if you were in a classroom, you wouldn't turn your back on your teacher, right? So we want to make sure that we're all facing forward. And then I'm going to ask you to mute your audio unless you have a question. And if you have a question, if you don't know how to use it, but there's a spot in your participants where you can raise your hand. And if not, just raise your hand and I'll be able to see everybody and we'll get you on board. Sally, you just talked about the gallery view versus speaker view. The gallery view allows you to be able to see everybody, and the speaker view will just see me or whoever's speaking at that point in time and kind of go from there. And then what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to open up your chat box, because I really want this to be interactive. And just to make sure we're all on the same page, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and type in your name. Tell me what high school you're coming from or what school you're coming from, how old you are, what grade you're in, and maybe your favorite subject. And I'm going to do that now for me right now so you guys can see it. So you should, if your chat box is open, you should be able to see where I'm from and what my favorite subject was and all that kind of good stuff. So go ahead and start doing that. And then throughout the program, if you hear something that you really like, so you kind of like something, just go ahead and say thumbs up or that sounds pretty cool. Emily's completely changed. She looks different than she did a minute ago. There you go. So that's perfect. So go ahead and start popping some stuff in there. Good. Ava and Greta from OPA. Where's OPA at?
It's in Lake Forest. It's a charter school. They're in 8th grade. They're going to be in high school next year, probably at El Toro.
Okay, very cool. Thanks for thinking. Well, we know it works, and so get everybody else on there, including the adults, if you wouldn't mind popping it in there. And so we now know it works. And again, if you've got something that you hear like, hey, that's pretty cool, or if you have a question, put it in there. So I'll keep it open. If you want to send something private to me, hey, Joshua, if you want to send something private to me, you can change it from everyone to just me or to the host or whatever it might be and go from there. But I'd like to keep it open just because it's kind of fun to hear what everybody's got going on there. Jolynn, all right. Cool. Okay, cool. So let me go ahead and shift gears now. Instead of talking about the agenda, I want to share with you really a little bit about Rotary, if I could. And Emily, this might be really interesting for you as well, just to know a little bit more about Rotary. But the first thing we want to talk about is, what Rotary is. And I'm going to change that from saying, what Rotary is to really who Rotary is. Because when I say who Rotary is, I can then add the personalities and the individuals, because we're made up of people and people that are worldwide organization that are really focused on supporting anybody that is dealing with mental health or protecting our environment or dealing with homeless people or veteran support and so on and so forth. And we're really about servicing above self. And so that's what we're all about. When you start looking at the details of Rotary, we're in 200 countries with about 48,001 club, I should say, 48,001. And about 1.5 million volunteer members that do nothing but volunteer to support people. If I went down the street and I asked people, I said, okay, how many people know what Rotary is? Probably wouldn't get a lot of people raising their hands. But if I said, how many of you guys know what Amazon is? Everybody would raise their hand, right? Everybody knows Amazon. Would it surprise you to say that Amazon has 1.5 million employees? So they're the same size as Rotary is, but we certainly don't get the kind of notoriety that, Amazon does. And we're all volunteers. Our organization is made up of a variety of diversities, diverse, many ages, from youth to adults to retired, and all genders. It's really important. And then when you're in Rotary, the buzzword we use is Rotarians. So we are Rotarians, and this group here is part of the Greater Lake Forest. And in July, we just opened up a club. That's why I said 48,001. In July, we opened up a club to be able to support specifically the things that are going on in the Greater Lake Forest community, which is Lake Forest, formerly El Toro, Foothill Ranch, Baker Ranch, Laguna Woods, and so on. So that's a little bit about who Rotary is. And in Rotary, there's really two organizations that fall within Rotary. One is Rotaract, and Rotaract really is designed for college to adult students. And what they do is they provide transition training for people that are going from high school to college, how to write resumes, how to do job interviews, all those kind of things for people coming out of college or out of high school and going into college. And then the other group is really, what if I don't want to go to college, right? What if I want to be a beautician, or I want to be trade school, or I want to become a mechanic or something of that nature? Well, we also have another program. It's our vocational program. And our vocational program can do all the same things that we did for high school, but also be able to do things that are specific for some of those other trades. So it's really important to know that those are the kind of things that we're involved with. The other group that you guys probably fall more in line with is what we call interacts. And just like it sounds, interact, which is middle school to high school. And we provide you with leadership opportunities and a Rotary Youth Leadership Award Program, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, because it's really important to know this. It's involved for sophomores and juniors in high school. Great opportunity there. We have a lot of different scholarships that we have. And then, of course, if you're doing any kind of service hour projects, we have all sorts of service hours projects that we can help you with. And then, Emily, it'll be fun to talk to you about this, but we have a youth exchange program where we actually can send somebody to a different country for a year of high school, and we exchange them with somebody else from that school. And so that's kind of cool. So Mr. Reynolds just joined in. Okay, cool. So that's the program of Interact. And so now there's two different kinds of Interact programs. There's one that's on campus. So this is where you have a student advisor, a teacher perhaps, to really set up the organization. You have different types of roles like president and vice president and so on and so forth. And it's a great chance for you on your campus to be able to have that program. The challenge that you have is, what if you're in a extracurricular program like band or sports or something like that, where you can't get to that, or your school doesn't want to have one. And that's okay too, because we've created a new program, which is what you're involved in right now, which is called a community-based Interact program. It has everything that you can do on campus, except that what it has is getting a chance to meet with other students your age and maybe even older that are outside of campus. So somebody from Dana Hills can meet with somebody from Edison, who can meet somebody from Oklahoma or from Massachusetts or whatever it might be, where you don't have those walls that are holding you in there. Plus, you have access to all the same things that we're doing with respect to the Interact program. So this is something new we're trying. And one of the things that we can do with this is, since it's all on Zoom, is we can bring speakers from out of the country, because I don't know how often you're going to end up going to Iran or Nicaragua or something like that. But wouldn't it be nice to learn something about those countries and some of the people that are involved in there, which will really broaden your horizons, broaden your scope. And when you're going to college and so on, you'll be able to interact with them even better there. So just at a high level, again, Rotary, large organization, size of Amazon, two different operations, college unit, which is Rotaract, which will help you to go from college to an adult and get you into college, and Interact, which is middle school to high school. We have two different options for the Interact program. We have community-based and we have campus-based. And by the way, if you want to share what school you go to in high school, we can find out if you actually have an on-campus Interact program. So your charter school, for instance, if you wanted to put together an on-campus program, we could. If you can't because of whatever reasons, then we can also get you involved in our community-based program too. And since you guys have all signed up for community-based, and again, there's no fee, there's no requirement, but you're on our list. So what we'll do is we'll keep sending you information about some of the projects that we're working on. Like I mentioned, we just started a program here in Lake Forest called the Greater Lake Forest. And I know that every single organization, whether it's Kiwanis or Elks or any organization that's out there, has some phenomenal programs to work with the youth, to be able to provide them with all sorts of opportunities to help those that are in need and the list goes on. But I really believe that Rotary is one of the few organizations that can take you from middle school to college, or to high school to college and into your adult life. And I'm going to prove that by sharing you something right now. My son went to Santa Margarita High School, so did all my kids, but I'm going to use my son as an example. My son went to Santa Margarita High School, and then, Southern California, decided to go to Purdue University in Indiana. Now here's an 18-year-old kid going from the beautiful sunny organization in California to Indiana, snow, tornadoes, all the crazy stuff that's out there. He doesn't know anybody. One of the first things he did is he picked up the phone and he contacted the Purdue organization that had a Rotary organization within their school, made himself aware, made himself introduced to himself, made a lot of friends, and the transition was a whole lot easier. The next thing is he got a job in Wichita, Kansas. He didn't know anybody in Wichita, Kansas, but the first thing he did is he contacted Rotary of Wichita, and they were able to show him where he should live, where he shouldn't live. And he's made some great friends out there, and he's been able to help that community. So that's why I say Rotary is one of the few organizations that can take you from middle school, your youth, put you through high school, give you some really great training in high school and some great relationships, bring you into college if that's what you want to do, and then even in your adult life, be able to help you there. So that's why I call it the pathway to success. So what I would like to do now, and Mr. Rem, if I can, I've asked everybody to turn their videos on, their cameras on. So if it's possible, I would love for you to do that as well. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Yes, El Toro. I don't think they have a quote unquote a program today. So that's one thing that we would love to be able to help develop as well. And Joshua, it would be great if we could work together to figure out a way to get a program on campus in El Toro. I know they have a really good program with other types of service organizations. Kiwanis has a key club that they have, but I don't believe today they have one. And we just met with a lot of their parents recently and some of their faculty advisors. So as we get closer to that, we'll probably help. And if you want to build one, you could be the president of your own interactive organization, which is great from a leadership standpoint. Look at that smile on your face. I love it. Okay, so I'm going to stop my share real quick here. So that we can all see each other there. And I'm going to introduce someone who I think really is remarkable, and that is Jolene. Jolene is a sophomore at Santa Margarita High School, and she brought to our attention that there wasn't a Rotaract club in Santa Margarita, and she tried a couple different times to put one together, and it just never came together. So she said, you know what, I'm going to go out there and build one where there is no school. And she caused this thing, our Community Interact program. So Jolene, would you mind just kind of saying something, and would you mind introducing our speaker?
Yeah, of course. So as mentioned above, I'm a sophomore at Santa Margarita High School, and I'm really interested when I came to this program. It's in last year, August, when one of my friends introduced me to San Clemente Rotary, and Sally Grown introduced me a lot about this program. The one thing probably it's in my mind, like the most remarkable one is service above self. So that means like you always have to put others in front of you and thought of others, and being thoughtful and careful about your actions. So that's the thing I probably learned the most when I first came to this program and decided to join. Also, two of my parents are in Rotary in Greater Lake Forest as well. And they are actually really grateful for this opportunity to learn and also serve others and volunteer in parks and also many other events. And now I'm going to introduce our guest speaker from Iran. She is an investigative journalist, an author, a speaker, and entrepreneur. She has written for the New York Times. She's been on CBS News and also several other TV stations. She's also the founder of Poppy Farsijani Fragrance, and also the author of a national bestseller and the first female motivational speaker. Now let's welcome Poppy to join us.
Wow, Jolene, thank you so much. What a great intro. Everybody, pleasure to meet you, pleasure to be here, to not only meet you, but also introduce a country that maybe you've seen a lot on the news these days and you're wondering what's really the backdrop of it. Well, I will share with you many, many facets about it. And I hope that at the end, you'll know how rich of a country it is and why you're seeing it in the news, and a little bit more about the different parts of it other than what you do see these days. So I'm going to share with you a PowerPoint, and at the end, I'll open it up. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'd be happy to answer and share more info about it. So let me get my PowerPoint in place.
Poppy, I just made you the host.
Okay, perfect. Okay, there we go. I don't know why he doesn't allow me. Why he doesn't allow me to share.
You should be, you're the host.
Okay, let's try it again. No, it doesn't. It won't allow me to share. What I'll do is that I will share this with you, Cedric, and if you'd like to be the host again.
Okay, let me
try it again though. No.
yeah, you'll need to give me back the hosting privileges.
Okay. All right, you have hosting privileges back.
Okay. Nope, you still disabled me.
Make host. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you should have that.
So what would you like me to share?
And I have to send this to you, which I have to send this PowerPoint to you. 1 second.
Okay.
In the interim, we could get a little conversation going. For anybody that has seen the news, what have you learned about Iran?
You guys will need to unmute.
Wasn't there a massive explosion?
There's a massive protest going on, right?
So I can remember, Poppy, when I was in high school and college, there was a challenge in Iran and the United States, and it was a scary time for even us in college at San Diego State.
It is. So I just sent it to you, Cedric. So a little bit about what's going on today. You're seeing a lot of female and youth-led protests that are happening in Iran. And the reason is the state of the country today is very different from the state of the country 43 years ago, before the new people took over. And it used to be somewhat of a modern semi-democratic nation. Now it's very authoritarian, and it's primarily it's a combination of religion and government, and that's why the people have erupted, because they want the separation of religion and government. And the young girl that unfortunately was killed because her scarf, they say the hijab, but hijab is referred to as when your scarf goes back or your wimple goes back and your hair show. So your hair isn't supposed to show because in Islam, you have to cover the roots of your hair and your hair. And that's the reason why all these and after her unfortunate death, all these protests are arising saying, we no longer want this religion and politics combined. We want religion separate, because a lot of the country isn't very religious. You opened it up, Cedric?
Yeah, I'm in the process of doing that. So
Okay.
I'm trying to get it. So you should be able to see it.
So, perfect.
I'm trying to turn it into a slideshow.
I know it's a
There
little
we
bit
go.
difficult.
How's that, guys?
Perfect. All right, everybody. So let's get going. So the country is called Iran. Geographically, it's located right here. Where is here? We're only seeing a portion of the map here, but this is the Middle East. And the capital of Iran is Tehran. But the Middle East, where to the west, we have the countries of Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Turkey, and then we go into Europe, Greece, Italy, all to the west. To the east, we have Afghanistan, Pakistan, and then when you go east, then you're going to hit Singapore and Bali and Vietnam and Cambodia. And then on the north, we have the beautiful Caspian Sea where we have a lot of white fish. It's phenomenal. We have Turkmenistan, we have Azerbaijan, and we have Armenia. So these countries are the neighboring countries. And when you really go north, that's when you hit Russia. And on the south, you have the Persian Gulf and the Bay of Oman, which is towards the south. So this is geographically where it's located. I mean, on this map, you can't see, but Iran is the second largest petroleum reserve in the world. We sit on the most abundant piece of land. And because of where it's strategically located, there's always a fight where who wants to have control of it because of a strategic location. It's right in between, we have China on the east, we have Russia to the north. We're in the Middle East, there's a lot of oil there, there's a huge petroleum reserve there. So there's always fights on who wants to control it and so forth. The capital is 87 million. And I could tell you that after this particular revolution that took place in 1979, where the government changed to the clergy government, the Islamic government, they wanted the girls, basically to not get an education, sit at home and just have babies. So the population really increased after the revolution. We could go to the next slide. Thank you, Cedric. Now, a little bit about me. So why am I even giving this topic? So I'm a girl from New York City. I'm full-blood Persian. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. And the reason why I could see the beauty in the country is because at 16, my father took me back to Iran because he wanted me to get in touch with my Persian roots. So I was just adapted just like all of you are. I was going to a public school, eating fast food, coffee, Dunkin' Donuts, going to Manhattan, Coney Island, and so forth. Just a regular American girl. And at 16, when he took me back to Iran, then I saw all the different layers of this beautiful country. I of course learned of the geography, of the history, but I also saw the culture. And the culture is something you really don't read in books. And that's the fascinating part, because this country is so rich in warmth and love and hospitality and compassion. And it's overlooked because of that extreme religion clergy that is dictating it, that we don't really see it. So I was fortunate enough to leave my hometown of, I was born in Tehran, but I grew up in Brooklyn to go to Tehran. Now, if we go to the next slide.
And Henny, can you do me a favor and turn your camera on, please?
Yes, give me 1 second to get my kids out of my hair. 1 second.
Thank you.
So when I went to Iran, other than what I had seen on the news, which is what you guys see on the news, I didn't really know what I was getting into. All I knew is that I'm going into a really strict country. I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know. I don't speak the language very well. I don't know the culture. And I was pleasantly surprised. First of all, the food in Iran is impeccable. We've heard about the infamous kebabs and so forth, but the food is all organic, very tasty. They use a whole range of spices that are specific to their area, saffron being the most popular. And the restaurants and so forth, they're very actually happening. The only thing is they do have that layer of religion that, I don't know, the PowerPoint got a little bit dark. Is it dark on your, okay. it's a very happening place. It's very happening. You could see on the bottom right, that's the dome of a mosque. So as you know, the religion that's in Iran is Islam. And Islam has two branches. One is the Shiite and one is the Sunni. The Shiite is what the clergy really are focused on, and it's a certain branch of Islam. Now, before all this religion talk, we had the Michelangelos, but they were Michelangelos of Iran, and there's all of this architecture is from different periods that they did on the mosques. And the mosques is where they go for prayer, similar to a synagogue, similar to a church. So these are mosques, and you could see there's Islamic writing within all the little pieces of it. And in some mosques, there's actually 24 karat gold within the architecture. So it's really, really rich and fascinating. And all of the different architecture takes you back to the different dynasties that ruled over Iran. We could go to the next slide, Cedric. So when I went to Iran, I thought I'm really going into somewhere where I didn't even know how the religion worked. To my surprise, these are the girls in Iran, really happening, very fashion forward, wearing the latest makeup trends, the latest shoes, the latest fashion. I was pleasantly surprised. A girl from Brooklyn, I didn't really know even how to put on makeup, but these girls showed me the world, and they had the latest from Italy, from Turkey. And because of the situation, there were so many people going to Turkey, bringing back the latest fads, and to Italy, and the different parts and they're very smart, very intelligent, and very lively. Now, a little bit about it. 70% of the 80 million are under 30 years old. So again, when the Islamic Revolution happened, which was in 1979, we're in 2023 now, there was a lot of addition to the populations. The citizens can vote only from 15. Hospitality warmth that I alluded to. The friendships are everlasting. These girls are loyal to the very end. You make really good, the people there are just great people, very loyal, very warm. The culture there, whether it's you're going to a relative's house or to an unknown person's house, it's really a culture of giving, of kindness, of compassion. And sometimes too much of it. In America, we have our boundaries. It's mainly our own homes and stuff, but there, families are about 70 to 80 cousins at some point sometimes. And when one family invites for Eid Nowruz, which is the New Year of the Persians, which is on March 20th normally, the house is packed. And of course, the language is Farsi. And the workforce, everything's spread out. Of course, for girls, work is very limited because you cannot be a police officer. You can't really be a judge. You can't being a CEO as a female is not really looked at very highly, even though it is, a big deal. But so the workforce are both of them, but it's very difficult because the economic situation in Iran is not as it used to be. And it primarily focuses on the male. And then we have a lot of things that, Islamic, if you're more Islamic than the other person, you get a better job. So the workforce is spread out, but they look at different factors when they really want to give you that good job. Yeah. Do you want to ask at the end or in the middle? But you could ask.
Okay, Poppy, I see this picture of these wonderful ladies, but I don't see the hijab, or are those scarves sufficient for that?
No, you're absolutely right, because, Mahsa Amini was at the wrong time, at the wrong place with the wrong person. Girls in Iran are like this. And even when the 6 years that I lived from 16 to 22 years old, when I lived there, I went out like this. But God forbid you hit the wrong egg, you hit the wrong person in the street, which are called the morality police, which are called the Black Crows, and they have the full coverings. These women have no mercy. And of course, the men are not supposed to touch the women. So upon an arrest, a woman can only touch a woman. And, sometimes when we saw the black crows, we would run the other direction, or we would hide, or if we had sufficient, we would just pull our scarves forward so, you know, they don't come up to us and either arrest us or give us warnings. Warning is some of the good ones give warnings, some of the bad ones, they just take you in. So they're like this in Upper Tehran. In the more, you know, the downtown areas and stuff, they're more strict and more religious. But unfortunately, you know, there's so many different there's not law there. There's no law there. It's just, you know, you have to be fortunate enough not to meet the wrong person. And now after all of these protests, they've actually tightened the enforcement for the hijab. So if they see them like this right now on the street, that's probably more enforced than it was before the protest.
Poppy, I thought I heard you say women cannot touch women?
Yeah, no, women can
touch women. But so if there's no police officers for women, then there's no police officers. You said they couldn't be a police officer, right? As a woman.
Mhm.
So then these men.
No, I was referring to the morality police. So we
Okay.
have the branch, which is like NYPD, and then we have if I were to make NYPD morality police. And those are the ones that arrest for bad hijab. And those are the ones that are, we have men and women morality police, and the men if a man approach these girls, they can't hold them and put them in a van. But a woman could hold them and push them in the van.
Wow. I don't know if I'd like people telling me what I can and I can't wear. You know, I think that'd be a tough thing, but keep going. Sorry.
Sure, we could go to the next slide. So what does Iran mean? Let's go back into history. So Iran actually means land of the Aryans. And let me make a point here that a lot of people say Iran. That is the incorrect pronunciation. It's Iran, similar to when you say Iraq. It's not, because we have the I in the middle, it just doesn't mean that we have to make it a compound word. It's actually one word and it's with an E. It's like Iran, even though it's written with an I, and that's how it's pronounced. It's the land of the Aryans. As you know, the capital city is Tehran, and Tehran means warm slopes. So Iran is comprised of really beautiful mountain ranges. It has one of the most beautiful ski resorts I've seen that are similar to the Alps of Switzerland. Unfortunately, the Islamic Republic has not taken good care of it. So everything is being ruined as each year passes. But in the north, we have the Zagros Mountains, and in the south, we have another range of mountains. And Mount Damavand is the highest point in Tehran. And then in the middle, it's just desert. So there's a lot of desert in the country, but it has mountain ranges. And that's why in Tehran, you get hit with really hard winters sometimes. It's like Chicago or New York. That's how harsh the winters are. And great ski resorts. It has really nice slopes. One in Isfahan, which is one of the most beautiful cities in Iran. The main lake that goes through the city is Zayandarud, and that's from the slopes of Zagros, which are in the north of Iran, and they just flow down. So it's a very prosperous country, and it has a lot of different elements to it. We have the desert, we have the mountains, and we have the beaches in the south, and it's very rich, very rich. And by the way, in Iran, they don't go by Fahrenheit, so they go by Celsius. They're like, I think we're the only country that goes by Fahrenheit. Okay, we could go to the next slide, yeah. So diversity in Iran. When I went to Iran, I was very interested to know that this country actually has such diversity, similar to Brooklyn, where I grew up. But the thing is, you don't really see it. We have a lot of Iranian Jewish population. A lot of them fled upon the revolution hitting, but a lot of them still are in Iran. They do have a synagogue. Iran is home to 35 synagogues. We do have one Jewish representative in the parliament. But the thing is, they're not very well represented. Again, it's the Islamic and the Shiite Islamic branch that really is noticeable in Iran. There's so many beautiful ethnicities. You know, we have Armenia, which is the country to the north, but we have many Armenians that have come to Iran and they live in Iran. We have a lot of Arab influence, especially the south of Iran. A lot of people from the UAE and Kuwait, in Qatar, they speak Arabic in the south of Iran, in addition to Farsi. We have the Kurds, we have the Baluch, which is the southeast. So these are different ethnicities in Iran, and all of them, sometimes the dialects shift. Some of them have additional languages that are added, but the food differs. But the beauty of it is that they have their own culture. Like the Kurds, this young girl that was arrested and beaten to death, she was of Kurdish. And Kermanshah is a very strong group of people that live to the west of Iran. Again, they're of the minority. So they really tried, again, they treat them as other minorities, not really giving them a lot of attention, and sometimes maybe questioning them a little bit too much than they should. But they bring with them Sufism, which is similar to Kabbalah, which is similar to meditation. So all of them are very different, very beautiful. It's a very diverse country. And you could even see the culture reflected in the food and the hospitality and everything else once you enter the city. So for me, it was a culture shock. I was going from Brooklyn, New York to Iran. I started my career as a sport journalist in Iran, and I was not allowed to do many things as a sport reporter. First of all, I was not allowed to attend stadiums or football games. So in Iran, soccer is called football. So we weren't allowed to enter football games. I wasn't allowed to look at my prospects in the eyes if they were male. I had to keep my distance. Or sometimes if it was a swimming competition, I was definitely not supposed to go there, because if they're, wearing their swimsuits, I wasn't allowed to interview any of them. So it's very odd when it comes to these components, because again, religion is interfering, and hence the reason for these protests. But these are great for you guys to know. Women were allowed in the stadium after 40 years during the Iran and Cambodia qualifier, which was about 3 years ago.
Wow.
And even when they were let inside, they had a section for women, and they had and the rest was men. So they had maybe like a little area, a little box for women. And I'm not talking a suite or a VIP box, a little place for women. So we could say, okay, we allowed the women in, and the rest were men. This particular ban was put after the 79 revolution, where Khomeini, who was at the time, he has died since, the supreme leader of Iran. FIFA denounced the ban, but Iran moves forward how they like. So they were watched by 150 female officers. Fencing was put up by designated female sections. There was a hashtag at the time, Wake Up FIFA, for that qualifier match. And 3,500 Iranian women were permitted to attend. Now, this is a great fact for everybody to know, that there was one girl that was the black sheep of the female crowd, and she actually dressed herself up as a guy, as a boy. It took 2 days for her to change her voice, to make up, to use bondage so her curves wouldn't show. And she dressed up as a man, and she entered the stadium. And we could go to the next slide. This is her. She's called the Blue-Eyed Girl. Her real name is Sahar Khodayari. Her hashtag is Blue Girl on social media. But they found out she was a girl. She was identified, and unfortunately, she was very passionate in her mission that she wanted to be allowed. She had rights. She had freedom of expression, and she was arrested. Her sentence was for 6 months in prison. And while she was in the courthouse, she came outside and she put herself on fire, kind of sending a message saying that we as females want the right to go to stadiums and to really explore that part of ourselves. And I think this is very important for everyone to know that, if you have something inside of you, authenticity is key, and you should proceed with that authenticity at any cost. I mean, you shouldn't light yourself on fire, don't get me wrong, but you should do what you feel that you should do. We could go to the next slide. So after all of that stuff, there was a little change happening, but not a lot of change. And I want to change the subject to marriage here. So Iranian girls, a lot of them are told, why don't you get married? You know, marriage is first, education is second for a lot of Iranian girls. And in Iran, it's very common for a man to have short-term marriages with a female. And those short-term marriages are called sigheh, which you see on the slide, Sigheh. So there's a short-term marriage for couples to get together. So for example, if you're caught with your boyfriend on the street, and that's illegal, that's sinful in Islam. So they take you down to the courthouse, and because you have done something sinful, you have to do a sigheh. So in the eyes of God, that date is acceptable. So that's a short-term marriage. So you're married to this guy that you don't know, and you're out maybe on the first date, but this is something that they have, that in order to prevent punishment, you could do this and you'll be married officially to that person. So again, when you see the black crows or the morality police approaching, you usually run, which is what a lot of them do, because, you know, sigheh, you get married to someone legally. It's legally on your record. And now going to fashion, there's a lot of, I understood that there was so much fashion, and there's so much going on in the underground world in Iran, that you see fashion shows, even they've extended it to head coverings. So there was like fashion shows for head coverings. There were for these long coats that you see, those are called manteaus, and they're usually worn as, you know, to cover the whole body, and they wear that. So they had fashion shows, and there were other fashion shows that were private, and they had soundproof walls so the music doesn't go out, because if authorities found out that you have these fashion shows, you know, they could put their finger on it and they could put you under questioning and so forth. So here we have underground fashion shows. The Ministry of Culture, he lifted a lot of the restrictions, and then some designs were approved in the order of more the headscarves and the manteaus. And but that being said, they would examine the models. So they had no cosmetic surgery done, of course, no drug use, no criminal record. You see, none of them were smiling. So under certain rules were some acceptable Islamic fashion shows. And then the private ones, which are the unacceptable ones, those were private, obviously. So you have to really be careful not to get caught. We could go to, okay. So I want to wrap it up right now. But this, you see this mosque, this is one of the most beautiful mosques. It's called Naqsh Jahan. It's in Isfahan, which is considered a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But the design, the beauty of it is impeccable. And it's one of my favorite mosques. When my father took me to Isfahan, I was just fathomed by the architecture that they have there. And with that, I just wanted to give you a little insight about the beauty of this country, the culture, the diversity, the architecture. The protests that are happening right now are the people wanting to have that freedom of expression again that was taken away during the years that the Islamic government came into practice. And the young girl that was unfortunately beaten to death, she was very innocent for not wearing her hijab. And if you go to Iran one day, you have to, and if we have this government still in Iran, you would have to do the same as a tourist. So we could close this.
Wow. So what I'd like to, thank you so much, Poppy. I'm sorry, Jolene, go ahead.
Oh, no, you can go ahead first. Yeah.
No, go ahead. You're going to close this off.
Oh, yeah. I have a question for Poppy. So you mentioned about New Year's. So I was wondering, what is New Year like in Iran, and how do you guys celebrate it?
Sure. So New Year's is called Nowruz, which literally translates, and I'm going to write it here. It's Nowruz, and it means new day. No means new, and Ruz means day. So it means new day. It's a new 365, and it's exactly on the spring equinox. So it usually falls on the night of March 20th. And it's celebrated with a very Zoroastrian, which before Islam, Zoroastrian was the main culture and religion in Iran. There's a tablecloth. There are 7 S's, words that start with S's, and each of them, similar to the Chinese, they have their symbol of something. For example, they have coin, which in Farsi is sikke, starts with an S, and it means hopefully you have more prosperity in your life and wealth in your life. And then you have garlic, which starts with an S, seed. It means you will be your health, because garlic is, you know, an antioxidant and so forth. So you'll have a lot of health in your life. And we have the 7 S's on the table, each symbolic of something that hopefully the new year brings into your life. Of them are vinegar, sumac, coins, fish, a mirror, sumbul, which is the flour. It's a flour that they put on the table. And the first dish usually that's eaten is white fish with herb rice. And the family gets together that night, whether it's the family of 80 cousins, if you're in Tehran, or if you're in the Iranian diaspora, such as myself. And our family is all spread out. After the revolution, we try to get together however many family or friends that are family, or anybody that would like to join. It's, you know, it's a celebration. We'd like to invite everybody. And it's a great, you know, you dance, you eat, you drink great wine, and it's very celebratory. And that's the first day. And in Iran, let me tell you this, in Iran, Nowruz, there's a 2-week, at Christmas, we only have Christmas Day, but 2 weeks are off for the students. So the students have 2 full weeks off.
Wow. So what I'd like to do, if I could, thanks for Jolene for the information and asking the question. I'd like to just open up the opportunity for you guys to ask anything, or maybe share something that you learned that you didn't know. Like, I didn't know there was snow skiing and stuff in Iran, and I didn't even know how to say it. I always thought it was something different. So that was something I learned. So please, let's just share this information so we know. You don't have to raise your hand. Just go ahead and speak.
So Poppy, from what I understand, are you living in Iran now?
No, I would not be able to. After I came here, and I'm doing a lot activism work for Woman Life Freedom. And then after I published my book, no, I only lived in Iran from 16 to 22. I was born and raised here. And then after the publication of my book and this new documentary, if I go to Iran, I cannot come back. I'll probably be imprisoned or something.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's
Fascinating
great.
story. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Poppy, what did the teenagers do for fun?
That's a great question. That's a great question, because they're very limited in what they can do for fun. I mean, there's a lot of underground parties. They go out to coffee shops with their friends. Again, the coffee shops, you know, it's not like, you know, you turn 18 and you actually could have a cocktail or something. They go to coffee shops, the under 18, and they have to be very careful if they start dating someone, that they should not be caught by the morality police. There's a whole underground Tehran that the teenagers use to have fun. For example, go to mixed parties, or if they like to, you know, maybe their first boyfriend, and unfortunately within that underground, because whenever you limit someone, unfortunately it goes the wrong direction. And these limitations are so hard that a lot of the youngsters go in very bad directions as well. And it's very hard. It's very hard to keep a healthy relationship with what you can and can't do when the government imposes such harsh restrictions, and these guys have nowhere to go.
Well,
Hey,
you-
William, can you do me a
separate
favor?
the-
William, can you do me a favor and turn your camera on? We're just asking that of everybody. Thank you. Go ahead, whoever had a question.
Yeah, Poppy, if you're talking
Thanks,
about
William.
going to the coffee shop, would be mostly either just girls or just guys?
It would be just girls.
Okay.
So when you're going
So
to a
here's,
coffee,
here's the question: where do you meet the other sex, the other gender?
that's a very good question. We're still in awe on how to answer that. I think, you know, in Iran, if for example, a family, if you were to get married, which is what a girl should do after 18, Maybe your dad's colleague knows someone's son, and let me introduce, and that person's son, with permission from the father, will come, and it's an arranged marriage, and it's an arranged. So the only thing that was interesting was that when I got accepted into Tehran University, the females took the first 2 rows, and then the males took the last 2 rows. So that was the only part where the male and the female were in one class, in one place together. But again, separation, like the females in front of the class, the males in back of the class.
So, Mr. Remmel, I know that you probably won't be taking an MUN trip to Iran anytime soon, but what did you learn since you're an educator and you've been all around the world?
I don't know, I kind of jumped in a little bit late here. I think that I was kind of fascinated just to hear everything and hear about the culture and the people. I think that one of my students that I encouraged to hop on this evening that did not hop on, he's doing a research into the protests. And his topic, I think, is to what extent can social media influence the government and the protests within Iran? So I don't know if you have an answer or thoughts on that.
Well, they're very controlling of social media, because right now it's the only way to get news across. The rest of the news is, which we see on television, it's state run. So myself, I was a journalist in Iran, and they gave me news to read, and they told me what to say. So the news is normally cut off or not, or falsified to what they want the people to hear, because they do brainwash people using the state-run television. So the only news that the people or the public can use in order to share information is social media. And that's why they really limit the use of Facebook or Instagram. I mean, Instagram is the way that information spreads along with Facebook, and they're limited that use quite extensively.
And would you, Poppy, would you be willing to, if we had an email address, to exchange with you and his student, so that person could actually do
Absolutely, yes.
that works,
Be
Mr.
happy
Remmel?
to.
Poppy, can I ask a question about the voting? You said that people are allowed to vote from 15 years and on. Is it required? And if not, what % of the population 15 and over will actually vote?
Well, let me just make a distinction that women, I don't know if women are allowed to vote or not, because voting rights were given to women during the Shah's era, and I don't know if they were taken from them right now. I'm not sure of that one. So, but would they vote? It's a country that really doesn't have laws. The Islamic laws that they say, they make the laws up them. There's no law that says you should beat a 23-year-old to death because she was wearing her hijab improper. There is no law that says you should imprison all these intellects into Evin, which is really the Harvard University. They have so many intellectual people in a prison called Evin prison that and for no reason and I've interviewed a couple of those sources that have made it out, and they're living in America right now. There's no reason, it's either suspicion or so forth. So circling back to what your question was, there is really no law. So what should you vote for? The elections are usually taken, or there's really nothing to have hope for. Change. Voting means change, means progression. What are you voting for to create that change?
Poppy, when you get a chance, could you put your email address, if you wouldn't mind, in the chat box? So if anybody had any questions they couldn't answer us. And Henny, it looks like you had your hand up. You want to ask a question?
I just wanted to first of all say thank you. It's my first time here, and I was invited by invitation. Papi Jun, thank you so much. As Iranian born who lived in Iran for 14 years, I just wanted to say beautifully done. Explaining everything. And also the culture kind of goes both ways. For me, when I first moved here and I started freshman year in high school, sitting next to male classmates was a shock for me, because I went to private schools in Iran, or even regular schools, and it's all girls. And I was a 14-year-old who sat in a class. I went to Mission View High School, and these boys came in and sat next to me, and I was like, I remembered that day so vividly. So thank you so much. I just want to say thank you for so beautifully describing our beautiful motherland. Thank you.
It is.
Henny, I didn't know that. That's awesome. I didn't know you had that connection there. It made this more special, I think. I really appreciate you doing that. Any other last minute comments, thoughts, or ideas? Because I know we're running a little behind, but we started a little bit late as well. And I have one more thing I want to share with you guys, but anybody have any other questions? Joshua, did you learn anything new?
I learned a lot.
So I
Good.
have a question for you guys. That what is the one thing that fascinated you and you didn't know before? And you're watching this TV and they're saying Iran this and Iran that, and now you're seeing, oh my God, there's a beauty in this country and they're fighting for that beauty. What is it that you learned today that you didn't know before?
Restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that there were female morality police.
Yeah,
I think that, I mean, I guess it makes sense if men can't touch women, but the fact that they're even potentially more vicious than the male police are, you know, with the rules, with the hijab and everything. I had no idea. That's yeah, scary.
yeah,
Let me just add to your comment that the morality police, I had them at work. So I was called to HR once because the veins of my hands were showing while I was on air, and I was instructed to wear gloves from that night on. So morality police is present at work. It's present in university. It's present on the streets. It's present, believe it or not, they track everything.
Wow.
So you have, it's very, very hard to live because there's always something looking over and your authenticity is at risk.
Penny, you had a question.
They're only
Sorry.
female morality police or are also male?
No, they're both. They're both genders. And, you know, obviously because of, you know, the female police usually go after the females. The males usually go after the males.
Okay.
Joshua, let me get Henny's question first, and then I'll come back to you because she had her hand up first. Go ahead, Henny.
Sorry, just because of the previous question, did you, and you kind of answered it, but I want to know, did you encounter them? You know, you were 16, the morality police, because I was 12 when I first encountered them for the first time. I shaved my head in junior high, so I don't have to wear the rusari or the hijab, as we call it here anymore. And I got stopped right. I was with my aunt and I got stopped right out of the hair salon. And, you know, I was a girl, I was 12 years old. Obviously I had curves, but, you know, I was like, if I don't have hair, I don't have to wear the hijab anymore.
Amazing.
And the lady told me, you know, the Crow crew, and said, put it on or I'm going to take you in. And now that I'm, you know, what happened with Mahsa, and I know taking me in could have very well meant that I wouldn't make it back out. So did you ever encounter that to the point that you were like, oh my God, this could be something really, really bad?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And the new documentary that we're creating, it's in it. I was a little mischievous, you know, I was a rebellious Brooklyn girl. I was mischievous. And I remember at 18, my mom told me to go get bread. And I said, sure. And, you know, I put a little makeup on. I had a little red lipstick on, a little lip gloss on it, and wanted to look my best, but nothing out of the ordinary. And I got stopped by the morality police. And I was with my cousin, and she told me, why are you wearing wet lipstick? I'm like, and my Farsi was not good at all. And I said, you know, I'm wearing it. I don't know. I'm just wearing it. And she said, well, I'll teach you a lesson that you're trying to arouse men. So she took out a razor to cut my lips. And my cousin called my dad immediately, and my dad came to the scene, and we gave them a very hefty bribe. And that was my lesson learned, that either run or don't, or make yourself unseen, unknown, kind of like, you know, just, you know, going, you know, kind of like melt in the pot so you're not really seen. Definitely don't wear red lipstick. I never wore red lipstick from that point on in the country.
Yeah, red lipstick and red nail polish. Those two were.
Yeah.
Joshua, go ahead. Joshua, unmute yourself first.
So are the morality police, are they like hired by the government, or are they like volunteers? Like, is it like a job?
Absolutely, yes. It's a job. It's a full-time job, and they give you pretty good money to be on their side, because they brainwash you and they tell you, I'm just saying, you know, just for the sake of argument, I'm going to give you $100 today. You go and spy on these people, make sure if they're not abiding by the Islamic guidelines, we have to make sure that everybody abides. So yes, in answer to your question, it's a full-time job. You're hired by the government. You have a paycheck, you have health insurance, you have everything, and you are considered a member of their morality police, and you spy on people. It's basically a spy job. You spy on people to make sure they abide by Islamic guidelines.
Emily, you've been really patient. Go ahead.
Oh, I actually had a question for both Poppy and Henny. As teenagers and as women, how scary was it to live in Iran?
I'm going to give it first to Penny.
It was a beautiful place to live. I'm not gonna lie to you. You know, I grew up all over Iran, so it wasn't just centralized to Tehran, but the prospect of what would have happened to me if my parents didn't get me out of Iran is scary. Because the country is beautiful, but the government was not. So like Poppy said, I was very rebellious, and at the age of 12, I decided, nope, don't tell me what to do. Yes, I'm a woman, but I'm not less than anything else. The country itself is beautiful, but what is being happening in it is, yeah, scary. That's all I have to say.
And I echo the same thing. It's a beautiful country. I mean, I grew up in New York City, and then when I was taking there, in those 6 years, I saw some of the most beautiful nature, people. I can't even, I keep saying it because I have such great friends from that era that are still friends with me today. The people, the food, everything is just so rich. And then you have these clergy, they have the Islamic clergy, and right now, if you compare the 1978 Iran with the 2023, you're going to see all the, you know, all the national monuments, they're dying. Nobody's taking care of them. The youth are not being tended to as they should. They're not giving opportunities, whether in the workforce. If you have a rich dad, maybe they'll make you VP, but otherwise, no, you know, someone that has potential should be given a path to move forward. And that opportunity is not provided, whether you graduate from a prestigious university or whether you're straight out of high school and you want to go into the job force. Especially, it is very limited to females.
Well, this could go on forever, and I really appreciate this. I want to respect your time. I do have one last thing, and again, Poppy and Henny, thank you. Henny, thank you for jumping in and sharing what it's like to be unscripted and just real, right? When you say things like, you know, I'm afraid if it wasn't for my parents, I may not be here. You know what I mean? One of those things that's something we just can't relate to. I don't think anybody in the Madsen family can really relate and say, yeah, you know, you have to wear this, you have to wear that. But if you don't do what I say, you'd be beheaded. You know, you just don't have that here in our country there. And William, we didn't get a chance to hear did you have any thoughts, William, on this? I know you came in kind of late, but nothing. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. And if you do, you can always put a chat in there. And then Poppy also put her email address in there. If you guys have any questions that you couldn't answer, that'd be great. But I'm going to share one last thing more about Rotary, if I could, really quickly here, and then I'll let us all go. Where's 2? 1. Where's my number 2? There's 2. I think this is 2. Because one of the things that I want to share with you with respect to Rotary in general is there's a lot of things that are coming up here. So first of all, I'd like you to try to put down, save a date. If you enjoyed this and you thought there was value, and if you have faculty people in your organization, or if you have people in your high schools or your friends and you think that there's value, on the 26th, which we do this on the last Sunday of every month, on the 26th of February, we actually have speakers coming in from South Sudan. And what's really interesting about South Sudan is their dropout rate is about 68% in high school. And the reason it is because they get kidnapped on the way to high school. Girls can't go to high school. Just a lot of things can happen. So we can't relate to this, but this is an opportunity. And all you have to do is just, because you're all on this, you don't have to register for it. I'll just send you out the Zoom link. But if you have other people that you think that this was an interesting topic to learn about Iran and the freedom of being able to communicate, please let them know. If you're looking for any kind of work services, or what do you call hours for credit hours for school, we're doing an event on April 22nd for Clean Lake Forest. So if you have any questions on that, you can always go to our website and you can take a look and see what's on our website. And then I wanted to take 20 seconds because we have actually 2 people very quickly. If you could share with us, Phil and Emily, if you could share with us a little bit about what you did at the Rotary Youth Exchange. And I think what's interesting, you guys both were in Sweden.
Bill,
Sure.
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Emily.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait, let's see. I was an exchange student, very different situation for my, when I went abroad, when I was, I guess, 17 at that time. I lived in Sweden for a year and lived with 3 different host families. They were all Rotary host families. And then my family in turn hosted exchange students here in Wisconsin. I was actually from Wisconsin. So I just have to say it was a life-changing year for me. I learned Swedish fluently. I work now in cultural exchange as a profession. So it was very eye-opening for me. And that's why I'm thinking about getting back into Rotary. I did a Rotaract for a little bit when I was in college, and it's just such a great organization. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Phil, how about you?
I must admit it's a very similar story. I was an exchange student my 11th grade year in high school. I lived for 11 and a half months in a town called Lidköping, Sweden. Same thing. This was back in the mid 80s, so the world was a little bit different than it is today. But yeah, I went there not knowing a single lick of Swedish. After 6 to 8 months, I was fluent. Lived with 2 different families, so had a lot of different experiences. I attended the Nobel Prize presentations. I spent 2 weeks in Austria learning how to ski on the Alps. I went to St. Petersburg, Russia, for a week long with a lot of different people. So the experiences of going to a different country and learning different cultures and being exposed to people of different backgrounds absolutely changed my life and my perspective on the world and what I believe, what I believe as an American and what I believe the world has to offer all of us is I think the Rotary International Exchange Program is a very powerful thing, and I would encourage anyone who has an interest in that to definitely look into it further.
Beautiful.
We actually have our deadline for this week for outward bound students, if anybody's interested.
Wonderful. Good.
And if you could, hey, Sally, since you're there, can you talk a little bit about RILA? It's coming up on Tuesday, April 18th. And I'll show you guys that if you get a chance, I'll show you where on our website you can watch videos and all sorts of things about RILA, but sophomores and juniors, I know we have a few on here. So talk to us about RILA.
Well, I'm very happy to. I've been a RILA camp leader for a couple of years now. It's absolutely amazing. And RILA totally changes your life for the better. And so it's a youth leadership awards program, and it teaches you character and leadership, all while having fun. Totally brings you out of your shell. RILA started in 1959 in Queensland, Australia, for a large event, and the Queen's cousin was going to it, and it was put on partly by Rotarians. And so it was born in 1960. So that's how long RILA has been going on. And in our area of Orange County, it's been 30 years continuously. So it's an all expense paid trip to Idlewild, California for 3 days there and 3 days online Zoom. But it's an incredible course. If you have an opportunity, reach out to your local Rotary Club or your high school and fill out an application.
And I'll show you guys where that's at on the website in just a second ago. John, you had your hand up a minute ago.
Yes, my name is John Telsall. I am the youth leader for the Greater Lake Forest Rotary Club. I was the one that sent out the emails to many of you for the invite. I would be extremely grateful to you if you would just send me a short email of your impression of this event, any suggestions for future events, any things that we could do better. But any feedback I would be very, very grateful for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to share, I don't want to have to my share button, but I wanted to share. Let's see what happened. Can you still see my screen?
Yeah.
Oh, you can. So you see the website. Okay. So this is our website for Rotary Club of Greater Lake Forest. And if you go down to here, you'll see students, and many of you registered using this. But if you go down
sorry, Sandra, to interrupt you. We see your email, like not.
Oh, you don't see my. Okay, let me just.
Poppy's email.
Okay,
Poppy.
well, thank you for being honest and telling me. So let me unshare what it is. Whatever my share buttons are gone. Oh, there it is.
Well, the four-way test, number one, is it the truth?
Exactly. So let me share this with you now. Thank you for telling me that. It would have been embarrassing if you would have seen my personal email. So no, I'm just kidding. So now you should be able to see my website.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So if you go to the website and you go over here to students and you go to South Orange County Interact, there's Interact Leadership Program opportunities and Interact. And then if you go down here to RILA Camp and click on that, you'll get a chance to see about a 4-minute video. And I won't show that to you because it's a little bit longer, but it was made by students that went to RILA. And so I would encourage you to take a look at that. And then if you need to, there's all sorts of information about RILA and what they do and so on and so forth and the benefits. And here's the Apply Now button. We take 200 students from all over the place, and it's about a $425 fee, but it covers everything. And the beauty is that we do have some fundraising opportunities that we can try to apply if we can. If you can't, it's still well worth it. And then if you go to here and say, what is Rotary, where it says, what is RILA? You click in there, what is Rotary? There is a quick, where did it go? There is a quick 2-minute video that can you see that still?
What is RILA?
But you see a video?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'll kick this on real quick. Can you hear it?
No.
No? Well, I don't know how you make the sound come through. But there's some really cool rap music going on. You can see it though, right?
Yes. And
Right, so
I
it's
can
just telling
say
you
I've been there 3 years as an adult, and I think I got more out of it than the students did. But seeing the students was incredible.
All right. So that was it. So now you know how to get there. I encourage you to take a look at it. If you get a chance, be part of the RILA program. And Emily, we'd love to talk to you about our club. We don't have, every single week that you have to be there. We don't have heavy dues or anything else like that. So we meet on Wednesday afternoons, and we typically meet at different locations to try to drive business into, try to drive traffic into some local restaurants and things like that. And so go to our website, go to our club calendar, just got to go from there, but love to at least catch up and get a chance to meet you guys. Any last minute thoughts, ideas, questions, comments? Really appreciate you guys being here. Like John said, if there's something you think we could do differently or better, just please drop him a note. And again, thank you. And thank you, Jolene, for setting this all up. Y'all take care now. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Poppy.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Phil.
Bye.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Jolene.
All right.
Penny, thank you so
Bye.
much for popping in and giving us information. And don't forget about Sudan. William, come in early next time. We'd love to catch up with you. What school do you go to?
I go to Serrano Intermediate.
Okay, very cool. So you had a couple of people that you probably know on this thing. There were a couple of Toronto people, I think, on there. All right, guys, take care, and I'll send this off. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank y'all for coming.